As part of the process of assessing their own vocal skills and tracking their progress, I always encourage singers to periodically record themselves, to record their practice sessions, and to record themselves singing songs, and to listen back. And oftentimes when singers first begin recording themselves, they're a little bit taken aback by what they're hearing, because what they're hearing outside of their heads does not sound quite the same as what they're used to hearing inside their heads. And if we're not careful, this can very easily send us spiraling downward emotionally and psychologically. And so there are a few things that we can do to ensure that that doesn't happen. The first thing that we want to do when we're listening to our recorded voices is we want to learn to listen beyond the recording quality. Most of us don't have access to professional recording equipment, and so we're going to be using our handheld devices such as our smartphones. The microphone quality on those devices is actually pretty good. The technology has come a long way. It may not be quite at that professional studio recording quality, but it's pretty decent. But in the event that we don't have a great recording quality, then we need to learn to listen beyond that. We need to listen to some more objective measures of our progress, including our intonation, registration, range, agility, legato, all of those things that help to contribute to that skillful professional sound. And even if the recording quality is not superb, there are still some things regarding the more subjective aspects of our singing, such as tone, that we can still assess pretty accurately. For example, the steadiness of our tone, the strength of our tone, the quality of our voice, but we also want to listen for things like the vowel quality. How are we defining our vowels? Is that very consistent? And we will be able to hear aspects of our tone improving along the way, and we just have to kind of listen a little bit differently for the sounds that we're hoping to hear in our voices, because again, what we're going to be hearing is not necessarily what the listener is going to be hearing, and we want to make sure that we're comparing that to what we've heard in previous recordings. And I always say, let's record apples to apples, oranges to oranges. So I would say start off by recording yourself singing a song in a given key, and then periodically record yourself singing the exact same song in the exact same key, so that you can get an accurate comparison. And the second thing that you want to make sure that you're doing when you're listening back to your recorded voice is you want to focus on the positive as much as you do on the negative. Most of us are inclined to really focus on the negative, the things about our voices that we don't like, the things that we can't do with those voices yet. But that can send us into a really bad place emotionally and psychologically if we're not also looking for the positive. That focus only on the negative can potentially lead us to falling into despair, to feeling as though we should just quit because we're really not meant to do this. That's not a productive way to be able to develop our voices. It's not a good place to be in emotionally or psychologically, and it's not providing us with a good learning environment. I believe that it actually hinders our progress when we're only focusing on the negative and the things that we can't do. So I say that for every negative thing that we find in our voices, every criticism, no matter how constructive it might be, we should also try to find something positive. And sometimes that means kind of digging a little bit deeper and really having to look for things that we like about our voices, because sometimes we don't have the best relationship with our voices. But we need to do it. We need to make sure that we're not stuck thinking about only the negative, because it's just not a good place for us to be in. And the third thing that we want to make sure that we're doing when we're listening back to our recorded voices is that we're not attaching any negative emotion to that constructive criticism. That is, when we give ourselves a critique, when we state something about our technique or our artistry that we're not that happy with, we want to make sure that we're approaching that constructive feedback, that criticism, very matter-of-factly. Okay, this is what happens, this is what I'm doing, this is how I fix it. We want to strip it of emotion. Like, okay, so I made a dozen pitch errors in that song. And how can I go about correcting it? Why did I make those pitch errors? And how can I fix that? And then making that something that's very productive instead of unproductive. So we want to make sure that whatever criticism we're giving ourselves, it leads us down the path toward improvement and toward finding the solutions to those technical issues that we're having, not getting us stuck in that place where we're just becoming very self-deprecating and very depressed and discouraged. And I find that when we do those three things, when we listen beyond the quality of the recording, when we balance out the positive and the negative, and when we refuse to attach any negative emotions to the criticism and feedback that we're giving ourselves, that helps us to stay in a much more positive place. And in turn, that helps us to stay motivated and to continue working toward our goals without feeling as discouraged or frustrated. Use those recordings of yourself, the recordings that you should be making on a fairly regular basis, as opportunities to learn, to be able to teach yourself, and to be able to recognize where you're actually seeing growth and development in your singing. If you don't track your progress, you'll be more likely to focus on the negative, on the here and now, what you can't do right now, what you don't like about your voice right now. But when you start to track your progress, you'll start to see the good things that have come from all of that hard work and dedication. All right, I really hope this was encouraging today. Please take a moment to leave a comment or question in the comment section below. Give this video a like if it was of encouragement or benefit to you. And also, if you are not already a subscriber, please consider subscribing to the SingWise channel. Thank you so much for watching and happy singing.